All right, so hello again, everybody, and welcome to week 3. Hard to believe, but next week is our midterm. So, um, need to make sure that for this week and next, you're really going through, and if you haven't done it yet, you need to go through those homework answers that are in the Blackboard screen. So, like right now, Module 3 obviously is not available yet until after April 6th. But make sure that you've gone into Module 2 and you've reviewed those solutions versus what you put in your homework. Okay, this is the only way that you guys are going to really get that visual representation of how you did it versus how it really should have been done. Okay, so that's one of the things that I can tell you. If you take the time, it takes 30 minutes to go through and review. If you take that 30 minutes, it's really going to help you be successful on those midterm exams. Okay. Um, Midterms obviously next week, and due Sunday by 11:59 p.m. No late submissions accepted at all. Okay, and that is a huge piece of your grade. So make sure, and I tell everybody this every single year, make sure that you're planning for the unexpected. So don't wait until Sunday at 8 o'clock p.m. and hope that your internet's going to stay up, because inevitably it won't. it'll it'll crash on you and it'll be down. Blackboard will be down until, midnight. Okay, so that's why I say do not wait until the last second. Make sure that you're going in and you're taking this exam early in case something happens, because obviously, if you're taking it at the last minute at 10, 11 o'clock at night, you're running the risk of not getting it submitted, especially if something happens to where it shuts down on you and somebody has to reset it, because this is another one of those things that, if you go into the midterm exam, you're going to see that it is done within Blackboard. You're not doing it in an Excel file, you're doing it within Blackboard. So when you sit down to do this, you have to work it all the way through. Okay, I have turned off the timer. There was a 90-minute timer on it. I've turned that off. So you have as much time as you need to work through those problems, but you have to work it from start to finish. Okay, and don't leave and try to, come back to it, leaving it up after, I think it's 30 minutes of no activity. It will log you out. So don't think that you can leave and come back to it. Once you sit down and you start taking this, you've got to finish it. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
So hopefully everybody can make the time and schedule in on Saturday to go ahead and get and knock out their midterms. Okay. That way, if anything goes wrong, we still have a day to play with, and I can, at least help with a reset or something like that, as long as it's a legitimate reset. Okay. So, any questions, let me know. Okay. Let's start out with, were there any questions about Module 3?
I
Or,
know
I'm
the
sorry,
first
Module 2.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think um the first question I actually went back and found where I made a mistake, and it was like the last air. And I was so proud of myself after watching the first video you did, and I went along with it.
Uh-huh.
I was so happy, but then when I got the homework, I'm like, darn it, I multiplied the wrong number. But I think I had an issue on the second question. And I apologize, Professor Bates. I don't have that. I think it was P3 dash 2A.
We didn't do 2A. We did 3A.
I mean 3A, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, so was it the journal entry part or was it the
No,
actual B?
the B.
Okay. Okay. So what was your question?
I guess I was confused on where we were getting the numbers from the work process inventory. Oh, there it goes.
Can you
I
see
think
it?
I don't know. Yep. I think I don't know why, but I was like confused myself when I got to that part. Like I don't know. I
For
guess I didn't understand it.
the work in process.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at, let me pull this over to the other screen real quick. And let's go back into that problem. I'm going to show you where this came from. Okay. So 3. So P dash 3-3A. Okay. So it's basically having you work through. Sorry if you hear my mom in the background cheering in the Cardinals game. This is a
No, you're fine.
weekly habit. um, so where you're getting this 960 for the work in process is right here. Okay. So basically you're taking your overhead numbers, right? And you're taking that 6,000 divided by the 55,000 times the 8,800, which is this under applied, right? So you've got your
Hmm.
applied overhead of the 55,000. So you're basically working out that rate, okay? So to get your work in process inventory, okay? Which is that $960.
I understand. 640 and the 7,200. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then the 4,000, is going to be related to this finished goods, right? So you've got the 6,000 of the work in process, the 4,000 is the finished goods, and then the 45,000 is your COGS, your cost of goods. Okay. So you're just working to get those different journal entries. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, it does. But I think I was just overthinking the question itself instead of just taking it one step at a time. I kind of was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? But no, I get it. I get you.
Yeah, it's a lot of these problems, and that's the biggest thing that gets people in the first couple of weeks with accounting. Sorry, and especially like on the midterms and stuff like that. They actually, sorry, I gotta get these guys out of here. We have 3 dogs of our own, and then my stepdaughter's two. The one that's having the grandbaby um, has two as well. So we have 5 dogs in this house right now. If you hear a noise, they bark. Um, so yeah, but the biggest problem that most people have is that they want to think into it and analyze it and make sure that they're not missing any steps or anything like that. And really, these problems are so straightforward. And it seems like they're almost too easy at times. It's like, no, it can't be that easy. Yeah, it really can. It's pretty straightforward. So just don't think too far into it. Follow your step by step processes.
Hmm.
Accounting is all about that process. Follow your step by step, get what you need to get in the order that you have to get it, right? And I think sometimes that's a hard component too, is just knowing what you need to get in order to solve the
To get the
problem.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
So, okay. What other questions do you have about chapter
No,
3?
that was it. Because the other question that like I said, the one that I missed, I understood it once I went back and looked at it.
Mhm.
That was the only one that I kind of had an issue with it, and like you said, it's just kind of me overthinking it and getting a little frustrated because I kind of want to get it right away, but I kind of got to
Right.
take it step by step to
Yep.
get the overall answer.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about chapter 4, the next one. So let's close this one out. And let me go down into chapter 4. All right, so this is cost accounting systems process costing. Okay, so this again is just another step by step. Okay, so the chapter's kind of going to flow in this nature if you haven't already read it, and you will definitely benefit by going down through here and figuring out the process flow and following these charts. So for instance, like the product cost flows in a job order costing system. Okay, so don't let all of those terms scare you. This is basically figuring out your cost on an item. Okay, so we're trying to figure out, in the scheme of things, we're trying to make sure
Mm-hmm.
we understand the cost of the item that we're making. Okay, and the reason that we do this is to figure out product profitability. So, how much are we making off of that item? Because, in essence, we need to control costs, obviously, and we have to be able to figure out what profit we're making so that we can set appropriate price levels and get the margins that we need on our products. So again,
Mm-hmm.
this is all kind of manufacturing related, right? So you've got your direct material, okay, so the materials that you use to make the product. You've got your direct labor, which are the people that made the product, so their salaries. And you've got your manufacturing overhead, so the building, the machines, things like that that were used to make this product. That's all your work in process, and it's
Mm-hmm.
all part of a job, right? Then when you finish it, you've got your finished goods, okay, and your cost of goods sold, right? So that's the job order costing track, right? So here's that summary, right? And this is what you can basically figure out from it. So you've got your beginning balance plus your purchases, your direct materials and indirect materials to get your ending balance, right? For the materials inventory. Then your wages payable, right? You've got your direct and indirect labor. That totals your wages payable. You've also got your manufacturing overhead. So here's all your indirect materials, your indirect labor, your depreciation, your utilities, your insurance, your taxes. Okay, so that's all applied overhead. So when you get that, you take that beginning balance, you add in your total manufacturing costs, which are these three, right? That it's showing right
Mm-hmm.
here. So the direct materials, the direct labor, and the applied overhead. And that's going to give you your ending balance. This is your cost of goods manufactured. Okay. Then you're going to find your finished goods inventory by taking your beginning balance, your cost of goods manufactured, and getting your ending balance. That gives you your cost of goods sold. So again, it's a process. You have to figure these out, right, in order to figure this one out, in order to figure this one out. Okay. And in the middle here, you've got your work in process for each job. Okay. So this is going to be your work in process on each job. This is your process costing. Okay. So it's used in a lot of things like that are in continuous flow operations, such as, like fuels, chemicals, small appliances, building materials, electricity, things that constantly are processed. Okay. So the process costing, that's when that's the type of operation that you're going to use those in. Okay. So here's the characteristics of them. You've got your direct labor, materials, and overhead, manufacturing overhead. Okay, that's going to do your work in process production for the production department. Then you've got your packaging department, so you've got your work in process packaging. Then you've got your finished goods. Then you've got your cost of goods sold. So we're really just adding kind of another step in here. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes. Yep, it does.
Okay. Bryce, you okay with it?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right, so this report here that they're talking about is a product cost report. Okay, that's what managers are going to use in a process costing method. Okay, so this is kind of what that process costing summary looks like. Okay, it's the same thing that we did before. Okay, so this basically is then, you're going to get your production department WIP inventory 1, packaging department WIP inventory 2. Okay, so instead of getting just one cost of goods manufactured, you've got two, because you've got production and you've got packaging. Does that make sense? So your direct labor and your indirect labor and your direct materials, all of these are going to go into the various departments. So you can see here, your direct materials goes both here, but it also comes in over here. The direct materials that are applicable for production are likely going to be different for packaging, because packaging, your direct materials are the package. So the box, the crate, the pallet, the saran wrap, the whatever, bubble wrap, right? That's all your packaging. The package itself, like, does it actually go in a package, like a plastic bag or a tube or a barrel, any of that stuff, right? So the packaging itself is going to be included in your direct materials, okay? Those direct materials will get split out from the production side. So this is where you have, the direct materials that were needed to manufacture the good. Let's say it was fuel, so you need petroleum and, something else, some other water, things like that that go into the making of fuel. And I don't really know what goes into fuel, but my guess. And then the packaging. Okay, are we sending it in 50-gallon drums? How are we packaging it? Right? So what are the costs that go with that? Then you've got your labor. So the people in the production department that are actually making the product versus the people in the packaging department who are taking that finished good and putting it in the packages and getting it ready to ship off to the customer. Okay. And then the manufacturing overhead obviously is going to be fairly similar for both, but we're going to take it and actually figure out what part of it is attributable to both production and packaging. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's the different sequential product processing. So most companies, and I'll give you a good example of one that I'm currently working on, they're not working on just one project or process at a time. Okay, all of them will be processing multiple things at different times. It's called scheduling and routing and things like that. So it basically takes your process, your manufacturing process, and runs it through a schedule and a router. Okay, so for instance, the current company that I'm doing an implementation for manufactures showers and baths. Okay, so their bathing process. So they may build the mold first of all. So they build the mold for the actual shower that, you can go and buy the fiberglass showers from wherever. Well, they do that. That's what they do. So there's a mold that's used. And so that's one of the first processes. And then there's, additional equipment like the drain kit. that goes within it that has to be installed as well. So that's the next process. So that would be like work in process department number 2 to install that. And then there's a finishing department where they might put a finishing coat of protector or sealer on there, right? So that might be process number 3. And then after that's done, it goes to finished goods inventory, meaning it's ready to be sent off to whomever ordered it. Okay, so the mold might be 1, the drain kit might be number 2, and then the finishing sprays and sealers might be number 3. So that's the process. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then when you have an organization that's really kicking it right into high gear, you're going to have, the molds get created, and then they get sent off, and they might have Department 2A working on one, and they might have 2B working on another, and then it goes to 3A and 3B, and then it's finished, right? So you might have one that starts out in the beginning, there's only one department doing molds, but they can knock out, 5 molds in an hour, So then you're going to send those 5 molds, or let's say 6 molds to be round. They can knock out 6 molds in an hour. So you can send 3 here, 3 here, and they'll go down the rest of the production line and get to finished goods faster. Okay? Make sense? Okay, and then you've got process costing steps. Okay, so this is where we're talking about, people. So you got to think about back up here. Okay, people in the molding department may make different amounts from people in the drain department. You might have certified plumbers sitting over here that maybe, those guys make more money. So you could have different costs within each one of these departments, but you also have to track those costs. Why? Do you guys know? Think strategically. What would you want to be able to measure if you were this company?
Well, you're going to want to measure whether or not, you need to hire more of the experienced or whether you can hire more unexperienced to save some money.
Exactly. That's a perfect point. You're going to want to see, and what would you be measuring to see, their performance, their output, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about like those more experienced, let's say 2A was the experienced group and 2B was the inexperienced group. Okay, and same thing with 3A and 3B. Well, if you send the same amount of molds to each side and 2A is pushing through their production assembly in a half hour, but 2B is pushing it through and it's taking them an hour and a half, who are you going to want to send stuff through? And why?
The ones who are getting the work done quicker,
Right.
get more out.
Yeah, you're putting more out, and likely you have to do like an ROI, a return on investment, and see, are these guys getting paid so much more that it's not worth it to speed up the process? And then 2, another thing that you're having to look at is, warranty scenarios. Are you, getting a lot of returns because the work that's being done faster is breaking? It's not done well. It's not quality. Or are you having a lot of warranty issues with the inexperienced group because they don't know what they're doing? So those are all decisions that you have to be prepared to make, and that's why you're wanting to do this process costing. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so getting down here, you've got the process costing example. So this is figuring things out. This is work in process as of January 1st. So this is basically what's happening in the very beginning of January. Then the work done during January. So this is like your beginning balance. This is what you put out in January. Okay. And then units in process in January. So this is kind of telling you the units. Okay. So this is a 20% complete. Units started during January and units process at January 31st. So this is 40% complete. Okay. So taking a look at that, then we go through and allocate the costs between ending inventory and those transferred out. Okay. So that's the next step in all of this, right? You're going to take and figure out the beginning balance, the direct materials, the conversion costs. That's going to give your cost, your total cost. And these are costs that'll be allocated. So then you've got your direct material. These are your current costs. So the direct materials from right up here, right? Your conversion costs, again, given up here, okay? And then that's your total cost was the 32 million, right? So these two are what you call your conversion costs right here, the direct labor incurred and the manufacturing overhead applied, okay? So those make up your conversion costs. So this tells you the cost of ending work in process inventory and the cost of units transferred out. So here's the visual and the flow, the physical flow of the units, right? So you had 2,600 to begin with. You started 58,500 and you had 3,500 left, okay? So the difference between those is basically adding these two and then subtracting this out to get your units transferred. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so here's another visualization of it. So your beginning inventory is 2,600. You started those. That gives you your total. Where did the units go? So you completed and transferred 57,600 and had an ending inventory of 3,500 for a total of 61,100. Notice your totals match. Okay, so that is something to note when you're figuring out the physical flow of the units. Where did the units come from? Where did the units go? The totals have to match. Otherwise, you did something wrong. Make sense? Just like a balance sheet. Totals have to match. Okay? So, if you don't know the number to one of them, how do you solve it? Let's say we didn't know our ending inventory, which we didn't. We had to calculate that. We knew that our total units, by adding these two together, was 61,100, right? We knew that we transferred 57,600. So you can take the 61,100, subtract out the 57,600, and we would get the 3,500. Make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Calculating equivalent units, this is the formula. You're going to get your average cost per unit that equals the total costs incurred divided by the number of equivalent units. Okay, so this illustration is just taking a look at this and showing you how to figure those processes out. I'm going to let you guys go through that. Okay. So that basically takes you through the illustration of the cost incurred. Okay, so it's showing you another visualization of it. When you take that, right, and you should be able to get out again the equivalent units or the direct materials. Okay, so once you've got that, you can also do the same thing for the conversion costs. So in this case, you can see that we had the complete and transferred at 57,600. 100% was completed. Okay, so that's fine. The ending inventory, we said at the very top of this, was only 40% completed. That was part of this problem. So you have to take that ending inventory and multiply it by that 40% to get your equivalent units. Make sense?
Yep.
And then you can add those two up to get your equivalent unit total. Okay. So the next step, okay, basically is just showing you this in a different format. So it shows you that completed transferred inventory, your ending inventory, your totals. It shows you all the matches that come through there, the percent of works done, right? So to get your equivalent units, it shows you that 40% here, gives you your conversion costs. So you can see your direct materials were 61,100 and your conversion costs were 59,000. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So once that's done, then we have to go and we figure that product cost report. Where did the costs come from? Okay, so that's the first step in this, is where did the cost come from? So our beginning inventory we knew was 280,800. We knew our current was 32 million. So the total cost to account for was this 32,800. Okay, then we could take a look and we could see that our direct materials were 166,400 and 19,250. Add those two up, gives us that total to account for. And our conversion costs. Okay, so same thing, 114,400 and 12,750. Okay, add those two up. Next, we've got to determine the per unit cost. Okay, so basically you're taking these numbers for direct materials and conversion costs and just dividing them by the number of units, and that's giving you your per unit average cost. Okay, now we're going to calculate the cost of goods manufactured. So you're basically taking that 57,600 and you're multiplying it for each one of these, the materials and the conversion cost, right? You're multiplying it by that multiplier. And that's giving you your cost of goods manufactured. Make sense? So once you get those two lines, you just add them up. Same thing is going to go for the cost of ending inventory. So you have to take what you have in ending inventory. So in materials, we had 3,500. In conversion costs, we had 1,400. We're going to multiply it by that same rate, and that's going to give us our cost of ending inventory. Okay? So that's basically what you're looking at. You can take and put this the five process costing steps into a product cost report. Okay, so these are the sections, and I want to call your attention. It's page 124. This is the entire section that you have to do, and this is a perfect example of how to figure it out, how to calculate it. Okay, this entire section shows you how you're going to have to calculate your homework problem. Okay, it walks you through step by step. It is exactly the same process. Okay, make sense?
Yep, sounds good.
So when you turn in your homework, I should see something like this right here. Okay. All right. And there are no journal entries on your problem this week, so don't worry about those. It is literally that other product cost report. Sound good?
Cool. Sounds good.
So if we go down and we look at, this is problem for 1A. problem 418, it walks you through all of your numbers here. So you're going to want to take and, again, walk through that example in the book, make sure you understand each piece of it, and then try to walk it down through this problem, because that's exactly what that's what your output's going to look like. Okay, notice you've got 60% processed and 70% processed, so your multipliers will be a little bit different. Okay, for the equivalent units, you're going to use the 70% for the ending. Okay, and the percent of work done. Okay,
Sounds good.
all right, guys. Questions? Anything?
I think I'm good to go for now.
Okay, perfect. Tunisia, how are you?
I'm fine. I think I'm just going to try to relax on this work assignment.
There's literally only one
and not
problem.
frustrate myself.
Yeah, there's literally only one problem. So take your time and go down through it. Make sure you're following the process that the book follows. It is, I promise you, it's 100% straightforward. So don't overthink it. Do it exactly as the book did it. Okay.
Gotcha.
And don't get frustrated, because, I know a lot of students stress out in the accounting classes because, like you come in here and you think, oh, if I don't get my homework right, I'm going to get a terrible grade on my homework and this, that, and the other. And honestly, I don't take off that many points for errors because you're learning. As long as I see that you're literally trying to make the effort and you're trying to calculate the right process and do everything correctly, if you make some errors on numbers or you add in things that you shouldn't have added in or don't add in things that you should, I'm going to expect that you actually go in and review your homework answer key and are looking at and saying, what did I miss? What don't I understand? Do I need to, have a conversation with me on these calls, and see what I'm missing that I'm not understanding? Because my assumption is when I tell you that that's going to be the way that you're going to get an A in this class is that everybody's going to do it. Is to review the homework and really try to learn the process, right? So, I don't take off that many points on homework, so don't stress out over it. Now, if you don't do it, obviously I'm going to take the points off. So if you flat out don't do a problem, I can't give you credit for it. So as long as you're making effort, really trying to understand it, you're going to get most of your points. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Alrighty. Alrighty, guys. Well, I hope you all have a great week, and I will talk to you next week, if not sooner. Feel free to reach out if you're having struggles and need a little extra help. Okay?
All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a
Bye-bye.
great week. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.